What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we're going to be looking at a rather exciting new Decepticon, which makes me genuinely legitimately happy, right? Because we've been on a weird run of Autobot reveals. Seriously, the last 4 cards I've looked at on this channel have all been Autobots. That's not very fair. But today we've got a Decepticon, and it has been revealed by the lovely folks over at TFW. I've said it before, I'll say it again. People that are getting the reveals, let's support them so that Transformers keeps giving the reveals to people in the community. And even if you don't want to listen to their non-TCG podcast, that's fine, you might be a TCG fan. But do make sure you listen to their TCG pods. They are great, and they've usually got Drew Nolosco and John Shork on there, sorry for the pronunciation, and that just makes it even more fun. So Raider Needlenose then. This is the first time we've really been given an incentive for star cards. Star cards like Leap of Faith were introduced in Wave 2, and they were great, but they cost a star, so you had to make room for them. The reward was they're nuts good. Well, Raider Needlenose comes in and he's like, hey, good news, I am going to reward you for playing them. Now, if we have a look at the stats here, it is an 8 cost, which puts it pretty much dead on average. But if we go by the Wave 1 averages, we would expect an 8 cost to have 4 attack, 12 health, and 2 defense. So you can see that every single stat here is 1 lower than we would expect from an 8 cost. The stats are frankly a little bit low. But that's alright, ladies and gentlemen, because we're going to be abusing star cards. Although the thing we need to point out at the beginning of this video very simply is, you really need star cards to make Needlenose great. But star cards take away the options. So if you want to play 4 star cards, you don't have 25 stars to make your deck of characters, you only have 21 now. So please do bear in mind that you can't make a 25 star deck with I suppose you can, but the stats really don't make it worth it. You need to play around with star cards, so with Needlenose you're probably looking at somewhere between 18 and 22 stars. You're not looking at a 25 star deck. So why is it so gosh darn good? Well, in bot mode it's got a redonkulous skill. When you play a battle card that has exactly 1 star, do 1 damage to an enemy. That's a free zap. Or indeed, heavy landing. Either is good. You get to do 1 damage to one of your opponent's characters, and it says an enemy, so you get a free choice of any of your opponent's characters. This is good. Zap sees play for cheeky damage. Heavy landing should see play. Firstly, it's got a blue icon, whereas Zap's got an orange, so you've got the difference there. But also, in a Devastator deck, it can be higher. Now, of course, you do get to do 3 damage to an enemy if your tower is 6 or higher, but that's only going to happen in a Devastator deck. Doing an extra damage is great. And at this stage here, I am clearly thinking Bolt of Lightning. Bolt of Lightning is another one of these star cards we got in Wave 2 that I like very much indeed. It doesn't have any battle icons, but it just does a flat 3 damage to an enemy. And I love the idea here that Bolt of Lightning does 3 damage to an enemy. That's 1 more than Plasma Burst, and that was deemed so good they literally made it a star card. But then, of course, because you're playing a star card, you then get to do another damage. And because it is a skill, you're not actually doing 4 damage with Bolt of Lightning, you're doing 3 damage, then you're doing an extra 1. And the significance of this is that you don't have to do it to the same character. It could be to a different character, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is frankly wonderful. We're happy about this. It's a really good skill. It doesn't need to be Bolt of Lightning. I mentioned Leap of Faith earlier. Leap of Faith's got a white icon, and it lets you play the top 2 cards of your deck. That's redonk. And as I've made the point in a number of videos, this is great because it doesn't lose the card advantage. It's not like Brainstorm where you've got to have the cards in your hand and then play them, but then your hand is looking fairly anemic. You are playing them off the top of your deck, so you don't even have to use what's in your hand. But then when you use Leap of Faith, you play the top 2 cards of your deck, and you get an extra zap as well, just in case Leap of Faith wasn't good enough to begin with. Now, it does read when you play a star card, so you could use something like Mounted Missiles, a card that I was lucky enough to be able to reveal, which is a rather ridiculous upgrade. and that would also let you do the damage. Mounted Missiles has a double orange icon, plus you get the +2 attack, and it's a weapon that can go either in the armor or utility slot. So make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, this is pretty gosh darn cool. I love this ability. It's a really good ability. As I've said, you've got to be willing to play star cards or else it just ain't good enough. But as long as you are willing to play star cards, this is really, really nice. So if we flip ourselves into alt mode here, you get to return a card that has exactly 1 star from your scrap pile to your hand. This is starting to get into frankly ridiculous territory, because star cards are great. That's the whole point. They are so good they take one of the stars you can use for building your deck. And you're probably not playing very many of them, because if you play a free of Leap of Faith, for instance, that's 3 of your 25 stars. That is a significant portion of your deck. And of course, if you flip it while attacking or defending, and given that you draw 1 card for your turn, then 2 when you're attacking, and then 2 when you're defending, assuming no bold or tough, it is way more likely that the star cards end up in your scrap pile than they do in your hand. But Needlenose here is like, look, maybe you use it and you want to reuse it. Maybe you flip it while attacking. Maybe you flip it while defending. Either way, I've got your back, boy. We good. And then, of course, if you can flip back into bot mode here, then you can immediately play it while doing 1 damage to an enemy. And you'll notice that, as I mentioned earlier, the stats are exactly the same regardless of which mode you're in here. So there really is no reason to stay in alt mode unless you really want to be a plane. Okay, there is one reason to stay in alt mode, because you really want to be a plane. Outside of that, you're way better off in bot mode, because then you get to do the cheeky damage when you play the star card. I really, really like these 2 skills. They're a great pair of skills. Both sides of the card work beautifully together, and I don't know why, but there's a part of me that's always really happy when both sides of the cards work nicely together. Although, to be fair, in this game, that does happen quite a lot. Alt mode gets you the star cards back, and bot mode rewards you for playing them. You have got to bear in mind that the stats are quite low, or, well, they're a little bit lower than we'd like for the star cost, and of course it might be an 8-star card, but come on, you've got to be dedicating a few stars. You can't really just do 1 or 2 here. I suppose you could do maybe 1, but then you're really relying on finding it nice and early. It's not ideal. You want a few star cards to make the most of this. So is it really an 8-star character? Now, the good news is, in bot mode you do cheeky damage, and it is a ranged character and a plane, so cheeky damage is something that really excels here. In wave 1, we had Bombing Run, which allows you to move 1 damage counter from each of your planes to the enemy, to one particular enemy, and of course that's a great combo with Photon Bomb that does 2 damage to each character, yours and your opponent's, not to mention Armed Hovercraft that does 1 damage to each enemy character. And then we've got cards like Thundercracker, for instance, or Starscream, both of which have skills that do a little bit of cheeky damage. It's quite nice. Although it should be pointed out you could not put all 3 of these into a deck, because Needlenose is an 8 cost, Thundercracker is an 8 cost, which gives you 9 stars remaining, bearing in mind you want some of those for star cards, and then Starscream comes in at an 11 cost. But certainly pairing this with Thundercracker, I could definitely see that being a bit of fun. And then of course, in Wave 2 we had Marksmanship. I love a little action card where if you've got a ranged character on the field, and this is ranged in either mode, you get to do 2 damage to an enemy in bot mode. Usual PSA here, combiners are not in bot mode, they are in combiner mode. So if you want to be doing cheeky damage, you probably want to be a ranged character and you probably want to be a plane. You've got both of those. This is the best reason to use star cards we've seen so far. I love the skill here. I also love that you get to choose where it goes. Because if you look at Thundercracker, it does 2 damage, but only to a melee character. If you look at something like Nemesis Prime, you do 2 damage, but your opponent gets to choose where it goes. Most skills that do cheeky damage, you don't get the choice of where it goes, but here you absolutely do. and I contend that both the skills here are absolutely brilliant. I'm a big fan of this card. This is one of those cards I'm really excited to start having a play with, although trying to figure out how many stars you can put into star cards might be a little bit of a nightmare. So that's what I think about Needlenose, ladies and gentlemen, but I would be exceptionally excited to hear what you think about Needlenose. So please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, but please do remember the rule. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk a fair bit of Transformers, but we talk a bunch of other games as well. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.